Hi guys, welcome to the video. So for today, I'm going to talk about how to heal the physical body. Big task, I know. Of course, I'm not going to be able to explain every single point on this in one video, but I will explain the main points, what I think is most important to get out there at this point now to help those of you who are watching this. So to start off, I would like to just give you an idea of what is happening from a non-physical standpoint that is creating illness. And then from that point on, from that point of understanding, we can then move into how do we start to heal ourselves. So you are essentially energy. This is your basic form, what you would call your essence. And that energy is comprised together, which then creates your own individual consciousness. And that consciousness at this point now is expressing itself or translating itself into something physical. You have your physical self now, but you still have this point of consciousness. So in your physical form, you are 2 points of consciousness. From a higher level, you're ultimately one, but at this point in time, you are expressing yourself from one into the other. Energy from your non-physical consciousness is feeding, if you imagine a rope that is linking you eternally, feeding energy from this point to the physical self. So everything about your health is determined by the relationship that's going on between these 2 points. So if you are experiencing ailments or just having some kind of cough or headache or some kind of symptoms you're experiencing, it's an indication that this relationship between these 2 points is in some way compromised. It's never broken, and you are never separated from your own consciousness. You can't be, it's you. But you as a physical self with the thoughts that you think are actually a very powerful creator. And when you think thoughts and create ingrained beliefs over many years, that is going to inevitably affect this rope and therefore the amount of energy that's being fed from here to here. Because as I said, as a human, you're a powerful creator. The thoughts you think also go into this energy exchange that's happening between these 2 points of view. So illness is essentially an indication, which is a good thing, that something is being compromised within this relationship. And the next point then is to think about, okay, well, what has created this compromise? Another way of seeing it is that this rope that joins these 2 parts could be seen as having knots in between. When there are knots, the energy is not able to flow freely. It's almost as if there's some kind of constriction that's happening. So when there's less energy, less life force, then the body has to run on a smaller amount, which is going to compromise the system, especially if it's happening or been happening for a long time. So how do you tackle that? Well, the first thing I would say is that there are many ways to handle this, or a few ways, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be talking about what I would consider one that is easiest for people to understand and therefore implement. So what I see often with people, and including myself, is that when we have an ailment, when we experience symptoms, our first thought or our first action is to seek relief. We immediately go toward doing something or taking something to make us feel better. And also we tend to criticize ourselves in that state. We're frustrated that we're sick because we're not as productive. We don't like the fact that we have to lie down and do nothing. We get bored easily, things like that. So already you can see that the attitude we have toward our ailments is not really conducive to healing it, because when we abandon something or we criticize or judge, what we're doing energetically is separating ourselves from it. If you separate yourselves from something, it is the opposite of integration. And integration is the way to understand what it's all about. So what you need to start doing is, when you feel sick, when you experience these ailments, instead of immediately trying to seek relief, you need to try and sit with it for as much as possible. So let's say that I have a headache, and I immediately, instead of going toward relief, I'm just going to, as soon as it comes, sit with it. I'm not going to resist the feeling. I'm going to, as much as possible, stop condemning the feeling. I'm just going to close my eyes and let this headache completely take over. And it's going to be uncomfortable, but as one quote I heard once, the only way out is through. And I do find this to be quite true. So you let the feeling take over you. And while you do that, you can start to think about what words come to your mind to describe the sensations that you're feeling. So, for example, with this headache, I might be thinking, well, the back of my neck hurts, the side of my face hurts, my head feels like it's on fire, something feels like it's going to explode. Okay, what else? So you keep going with this and you think, okay, well, it just feels very tense. I feel very tight. I feel constricted, and in that tightness, there's also some kind of worry. Yeah, I feel worry and I feel anxious. I feel out of control, and I don't like it, and I'm trying so hard to figure out the answers, and yet I can't. I feel like I'm going round and round in my head, and going round and round is making me dizzy, and that's what's causing the headache in the first place. So this is something that you need to do, and bear in mind, if you're not practicing this, it's not necessarily going to come that quickly. It will take a bit of time, but with anything in life, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So you start to think of adjectives to describe it. You go deeper and deeper into that feeling and write it down, record yourself speaking. And when you review it, you'll actually start to see there's a theme that comes from all of that. So from the example of the headache, you could see there was a theme emerging associated with wanting to be in control, anxious, worry, feeling somehow unhappy about something that's happened in your life. And you can start to, from that point on, think about, well, what has happened in my life recently that has caused me to feel out of control, that has caused me to feel despondent or worried or anxious in some way. And you've got to be a little bit of a detective in this scenario and think, okay, well, I know that I had this argument with my partner last week, and perhaps consciously or subconsciously it's affecting me, and I think this is why I have the headache. So yeah, you have to be a detective. You have to try and seek out these things and look at your life experiences, what's been going on in your daily life lately. Then you have a really solid foundation of knowledge there, and that's really most of the work that needs to be done in this case. Once you have that, then you can start to think about, okay, well, what can I tell myself to experience emotional relief? Obviously, I'm feeling bad about this situation, and that's what's causing this illness to arise. So now is the time to find a way to seek relief. And you have to do that by talking to yourself. This is what I recommend. So in this example of the headache and not feeling in control, what I might say to myself are things like, well, it's okay not to know all the answers. Why do I put this pressure on myself? Actually, I'm not a robot. I'm not a machine. I'm a human. And just like any other human, I don't always get it right. I don't always know what to do. I think I need to be easier on myself. I think I need to be less strict in terms of the way I think and having to arrive at certain truths at certain points. So you have a conversation with yourself telling yourself positive things about this situation with the intention, as I said, of experiencing emotional relief. Once you've got to that point of experiencing emotional relief, then you can start to take some physical action. So from that point, then you might ask yourself, okay, well, now I feel a little bit better about this. So is there anything that I could do or stop doing that will drive that feeling of relief more and more so? In that example, I might say, okay, well, I'm going to stop checking my phone. I'm going to stop checking the messages from this fight that I had with this person, because that's actually creating more anxiety in me, and it's not going to help my headache in any way. Or maybe the relief might be, you know what, I'm going to call this person because having this distance is just driving me crazy and it's actually making me ill. So you have to think about what's going to be the inspired action in that case. But the idea is that once you have the understanding, you then try to shift that belief, try to seek emotional relief in this conversation you have with yourself, and then take inspired action. This does seem like a lengthy process in terms of healing your body, but it really is one that's worth taking on. When you start it feels long, but as you start to make this a practice for yourself in identifying what has constricted the energy between your consciousness and your physical self, it does get quicker, it gets easier, and it is a more holistic approach. Because it's and also I want to say that inspired action can also take you toward things you would have done originally when you first felt the symptoms. So I'm not condemning the actions we may take to find relief, but what I'm saying is that if you don't clear the energy first, those things that you are seeking to experience relief will not be as effective. If you clear the energy first, you prepare yourself for it, then you take that thing or you do that thing, then it's going to have much more of an effect and it's going to be quicker for you as well. So this is the process that I recommend in terms of healing the body and healing any ailments or symptoms you may be experiencing. It is a combination of understanding what you are in essence, understanding the power of your thought, and understanding that ultimately all of these things, including your body, are inevitably connected. One affects the other. And when you bring them all together and you try to work with them, uniting them, this is when you start to experience true health. Thank you for watching.